You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. So much of my subconscious need to control things or to play defense is because I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to be somebody who's lazy. I don't want to be somebody who doesn't get stuff done. I have so many of these things that I don't want to be that I'm constantly trying to prove what I am instead of just knowing who I am and embodying who I am and accepting who I am right now. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, and I'm here to just share a little bit from within, things that maybe you're going to be able to relate to, connect to, or maybe even be inspired by. Or the opposite. Who knows what this episode will bring. I thought that I would share a little bit of what's been going on for me recently. The past few weeks have been very interesting. I can absolutely feel the shift in energy and in the amount of work that I have going on. My main full-time job is a wedding photographer, and we run a wedding photo and video company. And so things are definitely picking up. We had our first wedding of the season on May 1st, which was so special, so amazing. And it felt really good just to be back in the swing of things, to be honest. It had been since last October that I shot a wedding, which was it's the longest amount of time I've gone without shooting a wedding in years. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that. But it was so beautiful, and it was so nice just to see two people who were so excited to get married actually be able to walk down the aisles, share their vows. And we did video for that wedding. So I am so excited to, see what Dave is able to do. It's interesting because when we shoot video, if I'm available, I do second videography for Dave. And a lot of our clients book us for photo and video. So then I'm doing the photo and Dave does the video, and that works. I don't want to say better, but that works for me feeling like I'm working at my full capacity. With shooting video, I definitely feel like the second videographer. Like there is so much for me to learn, and it's awkward for me because I do understand composition and I do understand how to use the light, and I do understand how to direct people. All of that is the same. But what's different is using the tools like the monopod or the gimbal or different tools to help you keep the camera steady so that you can get a steady shot. And the other thing that I'm just not used to yet, and I was trying to explain this to Dave, is I'm like, with photography, you just take the picture, like the moment is frozen in time, but so I understand time differently when I'm shooting photo as opposed to video. With video, I'm seeing it and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And my mind is already moving on to the next composition because I'm so used to getting so much variety from my clients. And after having seen some of my footage back, I just see huge areas of opportunity in moving less, sticking with the shot, being a little bit more slow. And to be honest with you, it's been a little hard for my ego to receive that feedback. I've been going through hard feedback for the ego lately, not just with this, just with a couple of other things in my life too. And I'm trying to be open to it. Criticism is hard for me. I've talked about that in another episode because I am so hard on myself. And so when I see how I could have done so much better with this video, I really start to beat myself up. And I am really trying to break that cycle right now in my life and really try to give myself more grace and to remember that we all have to go through those phases in our life where we have to just be willing to learn how to do something. It's like when I was talking with Kylie last week, on last week's episode of the podcast, I had Kylie Hopkins on. We were talking about life with her brain injury after she was in an auto pedestrian accident. And, I was just telling her, I'm like, you can want to be in a certain place. Like, I think this is true for all of us, whether you're thinking of yourself as like that third grader who just wanted to be able to be on like the bigger sports kids team, or be in a certain level of, I don't know, a spelling bee or something. Or like when you get to high school and maybe you're wanting to be on varsity, or you're wanting to be in the higher level choir, or you're wanting to get a lead in the musical, but you just don't have enough experience. And experience is everything, right? Like the amount of hours they say that it takes to really become a professional. It doesn't matter if you have all of the abilities inside of you if you've just never practiced using it. And so I'm trying to remember that and give myself grace and remember that it takes a lot of failure to become really good at things, and just trying to be okay with that. And, you know, as the photography and photo business really starts to pick up and we head into what is going to be our busiest season yet, my mind is very full and very consumed with like how we're expanding and where we're headed. And I'm really feeling a lot of fears come up around, am I making any of the wrong moves? Do I have everything actually set? Do I have control over things, right? Like I notice a lot of my control freak tendencies starting to come up a little bit more because there feels like there's so much going on. And I'm really trying to let this year be a little bit different than in the past. I'm really trying to integrate, like, who do I really want to be in the future? How do I want my life to look like? And trying to take steps to integrate myself towards that. And I definitely feel like I'm having some failure moments lately. One of them is just that when I start to get into this, it's kind of like this vicious cycle of doing. Like, I feel like the way that I feel like I can have control over what's happening in my business is just to be constantly plugged into the email, constantly plugged into our spreadsheet of like who's doing what, when, looking at our tasks in Tave. I mean, I'm so grateful that I have an assistant who actually keeps me in real check about the things that we are missing. But as a business owner, you always feel like there are more things to do. So like last week, I spent a good amount of time working on a new how to prepare for your engagement session guide. This is something that we share with all of our clients who are going to do engagement sessions for. It just goes over some tips and tricks on how to prepare for the session, what to wear, things to think about to feel like your best self. And it's an awesome idea. So many photographers have these kind of guides, but I do feel like mine has that kind of flair where I bring a lot of my approach to humanity. Like, it's not about like what kind of clothes you're going to wear. It's really about you being your best self. So like what is in your heart? What inspires you? And then I do have a lot of practical advice just from lots of years on the job and learning what colors photograph well, how to go for different vibes, all of that kind of stuff. But I've had this other guide, the like version 1, for the past already 2 years. And I feel like I just made that. And now it is already so outdated and the fonts are all wrong and the style's changed and everything like that. So had to redo that. And then we are getting ready to relaunch we're going through a new website design for the photo and video business. So I'm so grateful that is happening, but it was kind of like a little bit like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. So there's so much to get done for that. And then there's things that I've just been wanting to manifest for my team. Like, it's been about 2.5, 3 years that we've had a team of photographers that work for us. And then I would say it's been 2 full seasons. This is our 3rd full season of having a lot of the same team members. And in 2019, we were able to actually go out and do this huge, big team shoot to kick off the season. We had this wonderful couple come out to be our bride and groom, and we had such a blast. It was such a good way for everyone to connect outside of actually being at a wedding or actually being on a job. And I've been wanting to do something like that again. I wanted to do it last summer and put a little bit more into it, like make it kind of like a pseudo styled shoot. And then COVID happened. And so everything just did that. All of that got put on hold. And so this year I've been really trying to create this. And I had all of these plans set up And I'm not even going to go into the drama of it because I'm not really a person who likes drama. And this situation got just, let's just say like there was a lot of hard work put in from a lot of different sides, and it ended up not working out for us. And I have to be okay with that. But I also feel really bummed out because I feel like a little bit like there's no time left. Like I know all of our photographers are super scheduled, summer plans. Everyone's trying to get in on vacations this summer because last year was such a non-vacation year. Lots of our team has kids, and so I'm just kind of trying to sit with that a little bit and be like, okay, where is the green light in this situation? Because I've been hitting red light after red light after red light, and you come to a point where you cannot force something to happen. And I live this way all the time. It's like, I always tell people, I'm like, if we have a shoot scheduled and it keeps raining or snowing or pouring every time we try to go out for your session, then it is not meant to be. And when we do finally get out there, it's going to be the best thing ever. I've lived this time and time again with my clients where we'll have a couple reschedules due to a wide variety of things. Like one of them, we had to reschedule because like the guy had like smashed his toe and he couldn't walk. And then the next time there was like all of this rain, and it was definitely not going to work. And then by the time we finally did it, it was seriously amazing. We ended up with like one of the most beautiful sunsets ever. And it was just one of those overwhelming moments of things happening for a reason and being exactly where you're supposed to be. So I really do believe that, and not just in business, but in all areas of life. Like if you are not getting somewhere with what you thought you wanted, then it is God or the universe saying no or wait. And that can be a little discouraging. And what I always try to do is allow yourself to feel the disappointment, allow yourself to feel the frustration, and allow yourself to re-examine your trajectory too. Like, okay, why did this not work? For me, I'm trying to examine what really happened with this styled shoot not working out. And I have had a lot of takeaways from that. And probably my biggest one is just giving yourself more time to plan in advance. Like I'm probably going to have to start this fall planning the next styled shoot, or, at least like 4 or 5 months in advance, because there's so many things that have to come together to make that happen. And the more people that you involve, the harder it is to get everybody on the same page. So, just giving grace for that. And also the thing that I have to say, I'm going to get up on my soapbox because you guys just know I cannot help myself. There are a lot of people that will arrange styled shoots, and there are a lot of photographers that love styled shoots. And I'm not knocking on anybody who does that, but I will say that there is absolutely no way that a styled shoot replicates any kind of vibe of an actual wedding. Because on a real wedding day, you don't have hours with a couple to get all of the shots that you want. On a real wedding day, you may not even have more than 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes if you're really lucky in a reception space to actually get the setup, especially without somebody walking in the room or somebody having to set up or salads needing to come out or those kind of things. On a real wedding day, everything moves so much faster. And so that's why it's really fun to do a styled shoot as a photographer, because you actually get the chance to really slow down and create intentionally. But the point of doing the styled shoot is not to be able to only market with that or to even give the illusion that this is real. For me, the point of doing a styled shoot is to be able to showcase ideas that people may not try if they haven't seen them through pictures. There's so many cool things that you can do, like different kind of cakes or different kind of display options or different kind of color schemes or different kind of floral arrangements. And if you haven't seen it or have good photos of it, you may never think to try that for your own wedding day. So that's a big reason. And that's the other point of doing a style shoot, is to connect with a multitude of people who you really love to work with. So that way you guys can have that chance to showcase off each other's work, collaborate together, have fun, and do something really different. So the only reason I say that and clarify that is I do think that anybody who's looking at a photographer to get married, make sure that you're seeing stuff from real weddings, because if you're only seeing stuff from a style shoot, or if their Instagram page that you're in love with is only from style shoot situations, it is important just to ask them what it would actually be like on your real wedding day, because not everyone has the same amount of experience with how fast things move on a wedding day. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. I'm sorry for sharing so much about that. I hope that it is interesting to you. You can definitely tell that's where a lot of my mind is right now. If you don't already follow my photo and video business, you can find us on Instagram at Felicia Marty Photo Video, or you can go from my website. But I will close that chapter for today, and let's shift to talking about what's happening astrologically and do our astro check-in. So I will say that I have a brand new moon guide out, and it is available for free on my website. So if you are wanting the monthly new moon guide, go to my website, abitfromwithin.com, and check out the lunar guides and look for the monthly lunar guide. This is going to go all over May's new moon, which is happening today that you're listening to this on the 11th. So we have a new moon, and in new moons, got to remember that the sun and the moon are in the same place in the sky. So today they're both in Taurus. So Taurus energy is about sensuality, it's about security, stability, it's very practical. And so this is like the perfect week. I know here in Colorado, we've been having some like really rainy weather and things are kind of mellow. I feel like this is great weather for Taurus because things are already kind of a little bit of a slower pace with Taurus, and things can be very steadfast, and then it's also perfect for getting like really cozy and enjoying and indulging in your senses. So like eating like your favorite food really slowly, watching your favorite movie, taking a bubble bath with like your favorite essential oil diffusing, just finding this way to just kind of slow down and really allow yourself to savor the moment. I think that is going to be the best thing about this new moon. And I will also say that I feel like this week, this new moon is a little bit of like the calm before the storm. So a really good time to truly feel like you can like let go of any of the burdens that you've been carrying, any of the junk that's been kind of pulling along with you as you start to really get into spring. Like take a moment to plant your feet in the ground, dust yourself off, shake off any of that stuff that's just lingering, and try to open your heart, or just even crack open your heart to what is it that you're ready to grow into, that you're ready to expand into. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have that invitation or that intention towards what you want. And we know that new moons are an amazing time for setting new intentions. So do that work now while things are a little bit more mellow, because later this month we've got a lunar eclipse happening along that same axis that we were at in November and December of last year, actually also last June. This is basically, these eclipses are happening along this Gemini and Sagittarius axis, and there's 6 of them. So starting last June and going until next December. So we're right in there, and we're going to be hitting that twice this month, well, once this month and once next month. So lunar eclipse at the full moon this month, and a solar eclipse in, I think it's on June 10th. So just remember that's coming up. We'll talk more about that in a different episode. Also later this month, Mercury goes retrograde. We've got Jupiter moving Taurus season is starting to wind down, and Gemini season is going to be beginning on the 20th. So lots going on, and I kind of give you a better overview and some inspiration and personal thoughts on all of this. So if you love this kind of stuff, go to abitfromwithin.com and download the guide. Or if you're a Patreon member, it was already delivered to your inbox. So just go ahead and dive on in and read it, check it out. Also in every guide is a ritual. So this month's ritual is about clearing out the old and setting intentions for the new. And I do recommend that you do this ritual out in nature, especially because Taurus is an earth sign. It's like, let's go get out in nature. Let's reconnect. Get your feet in the grass or in the dirt and maybe sit by a little stream or creek or something like that, or go out on a hike and just allow yourself to connect to Mother Earth. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and dive into today's topic. Okay, so I have a quote from Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. A really close friend of mine suggested that we listen to this when we were out on our road trip, and so we downloaded the Audible book, and it is amazing. We really, really enjoyed it, both Dave and I. But this quote really stood out to me. Catching green lights is about skill, intent, context, consideration, endurance, anticipation, resilience, speed, and discipline. We can catch more green lights by simply identifying where the red lights are in our life and then change course to hit fewer of them. And I loved that so much. And I've been thinking a lot, like I mentioned earlier, just about, where are the red lights happening in my life? Where are the green lights? And trying to use those things that, he mentioned, like intent, consideration, having endurance, looking ahead, having resilience, all of those things, just to kind of help me stay on track. And part of what I think you have to do as you take all of this into consideration is to look at what's been going on for you. And as I look back at that pace that I was tapping into a lot last week, this feeling of anxiety, this feeling that I'm forgetting something. Actually, I remember I called Dave, I can't remember if it was like Wednesday or Thursday last week. And I was like, I feel like I woke up in a funk today. And I feel like all day that I'm just forgetting something huge and important that I need to get done. And I literally have no idea what it is. I have all of these checklists going, all of these to-do lists. I'm trying to keep up with everything. Everything seems to be done. Everything seems to be okay, but I still feel like I'm forgetting something. And it's a really horrible feeling, right? And I realize that this is an old familiar feeling from inside of me. And it comes from feeling out of control, right? Like, it's just like there are good things happening. There's a lot of momentum happening. And I am even creating changes in my life to help support me better. And yet I still feel like I'm expressing the same pattern again and again. So what does that actually mean for me and how I'm trying to approach this week? Well, I think it comes to realizing that, like, you cannot live, or this is what I'm telling myself, like, Felicia, you cannot live playing defense all the time. And I feel like that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to say, okay, where am I going to mess up? What's going to go wrong? How can I get things done before then? How can I, anticipate somebody that's going to be upset and do what's better for them? Or how can I anticipate that, I'm going to feel tired tomorrow, so I should do the laundry today? It's like I'm constantly playing defense, and that is making me mentally exhausted. It is making me, well, I would say physically exhausted, although it's mentally exhausting. That is what it is. And it doesn't make for me being my best self and showing up as my best self. Instead, it comes out to those closest to me as harshness and me sitting here in a place of panic and probably cortisol running through my body, instead of me feeling like it can actually sink into the moment and enjoy and really allow my energy to shift into a way that's going to be so much more healthy for my well-being. And I hope that it is, part of me feels a little bit like a fraud even sharing that, because I feel like I am always on this same journey, like repeating this same thing I need to learn. But I also hope that maybe that gives you comfort that even if you're continuing to, battle that same root issue, but in multiple different ways, that you are normal and that we are doing the best that we can, and it is okay. So I've been thinking a little bit about like, okay, how can you stop living in defense? Like what areas do you need to put more energy and intention into? And so I have just a few thoughts on that. And my first thought is knowing who you are and how knowing who you are helps you stop living in defense. Because I feel like so much of my subconscious need to control things or to play defense is because I don't want to be, a failure. I don't want to be somebody who's lazy. I don't want to be somebody who doesn't get stuff done. I have so many of these things that I don't want to be, that I'm constantly trying to prove what I am, instead of just knowing who I am and embodying who I am and accepting who I am right now. In fact, that's something that kind of came up between Dave and I think it was a couple weeks ago. He was just kind of feeling a little bit under the weather, and he was laying on the couch, middle of the day, just chilling. And I found myself getting a little bit harsh about this. And I almost hate to admit this because poor Dave, he gets the worst of me so often. And I really hate that. I'm really working on that in my life. But I didn't say anything to him, but I could feel myself judging him, even though I didn't want to. I don't want to. Like in my rational head, I'm like, it is okay that he rests. Like he has nothing else to do. We are fine. Everything is good. You should be able to rest. And I realized as I was really thinking about this, like, why does that judgment come up for me? And I realized it's because I don't allow myself to rest. I wouldn't allow myself to be like, I'm kind of under the weather right now. I'm just going to go cuddle up on the couch. I have to push myself to the most extreme, be the most tired I've ever been, feel the sickest I've ever been, to actually allow that for myself. And that is crazy. None of us should feel that way. Like none of us should treat ourselves that way. We should all be so much more gentle with ourselves. And so the reason I bring that up is once I realized that, I started to kind of allow myself to really consider, like, when do you need to rest, Felicia? Maybe you need to practice that. Maybe you need to be like, okay, I've gotten everything taken care of. I don't have to find another thing to add in to the to-do list to fill the next 4 hours of the day. Maybe I can just lay down. Maybe I can just pour a glass of water and just sit here and drink this. It's literally having to force myself to be like, when I do that, when I sit down and I rest or I sit on the back patio, it's like, this is okay. You are being yourself. You are allowed to be a human. You are allowed to have a human experience. You are allowed to not just be this constantly producing machine. You're not going to forget something. You're not going to lose momentum later. You're fine. So, I guess that kind of goes into that same category of like knowing who you are and just allowing yourself to be a real human. The next thing to kind of hopefully help this defense is knowing who you can trust. So, there are very few people in my life who I feel like I can't trust. And part of that is because I'm a very honest person. I will always show up and tell the truth no matter what. I will try to be kind about it. I will try to have, grace about it, but I'm always going to be as honest as possible. And I think when you live that life, or at least in my experience, because I do live with such authenticity in that way, I feel like there's very few people that I interact with on such a shallow basis that I can't trust them. And, part of that comes from being very, self-sufficient. Like when you run your own business, you get to handpick the people that you work most closely with. So like, I trust my accountant. I trust the people who I have venue partnerships with. I trust my clients. I trust my team. Like I have carefully, chosen to be in these kind of trusted partnerships, and it has really worked out for me. But when you start to interact often with people who are not trustworthy, or even if you just have, like for me recently, I had one interaction with somebody that I literally don't know if they're lying to me. I'm pretty sure actually that like half of our interactions were lies. And my gut has told me over and over again, like, this conversation that you're having right now is not something you should pay attention to. Even to the point where they got me trying to second guess myself and my work. And I had a couple moments where like I was really frustrated about this, and then I realized I'm like, these people are not trustworthy. I cannot spend another moment stressing out about this, what may or may not even be true, because there's no trust here. And so when you know who you can trust, even when I was dealing with this situation, I was able to go to the people that I do trust, who have great sense of character, who have great sense of style, who have great sense of understanding the craft that I was talking about, and got their opinion. And I believe them because I've known over and over again that these people are trustworthy. And that alone can help you with living in defense, because if you know that you have others in your court who have your back, who are filling up, your friendship tank, like that feeling of like support in your life, that's automatically going to help you. If you are a words of affirmation person, having those friends who can just shoot you an encouraging text message. If you're a quality time person, inviting that friend over to do a watch party or to make cookies or something like that. All of those things, just surrounding yourself with people you can trust and who support you and love you, and not just your partner, right? Like your partner is amazing. Like I love my relationship with Dave, and like we've got such a great thing going between us. But we're in it together all the time. And sometimes I take for granted, just how supportive we are with each other. And it means a lot coming from a good girlfriend, right? Or a good conversation with my mom or something like that. And then part 3, I guess, of living in defense, like things that will automatically help, is being willing to slow down. Now, I want to share my thoughts on this because I always have to be authentic, and you guys can tell that I'm not always good at this, because the examples I give every time when I'm feeling like I'm in frustration or things aren't going great, it's because I don't have a good channel to slow down, or have a lot of resistance surrounding this. And so I don't want to be a fake, and I don't want to be a fraud. And I also want to be able to connect with those of you who also feel this way, and not just say like, be willing to slow down. It's like, okay, what does that actually mean? So if you are having trouble slowing down, I think it is not about looking for that switch, that light switch, where you're just, I'm fast or I'm slow, right? Because that's not comfortable. It's going to feel so unfamiliar. It's going to feel like crap, and you probably won't stick with it for very long. So instead, I try to think of it as like, instead of, hitting the gas, like just take your foot off the gas, and maybe you build in times for slowness. So perhaps that is a strategy that I like to use, especially when things get really busy, is the night before I go to bed, I go to the office. I prepare the office for like how I'm going to get started in the morning. Like I get my little note going with my little check boxes, and I'm like, these are the things I need to get done tomorrow. You can rearrange them in a certain order if you really like to. I like to make my desk into a standing desk, and I just got this walking treadmill so that I can walk at my desk. And so I slide it under my desk so that right when I wake up, I can go and start my morning off in the right way. Like my desk is ready. I know what I need to get done. I can get my body moving at the same time. It's really working for me. And then I have built-in slowness because I've already thought through what the day is going to be like. So for example, I did this last night, and after I finish, recording this podcast today and getting it up on and ready to publish, I can go have a slow afternoon. I intentionally built it in that way. And ways that you can fill that slowness, you can always eat a meal or cook a meal, like take your time to prepare something. You can sit down and do a meditation. You could lay on your office floor with a strap handy and just stretch through those legs. You can call a friend. You can journal. There are so many ways that you can start to wind down, and it doesn't have just to be on or off. You can think of those favorite things that just allow you to transition into a slower state of being, whether that is going on a hike or driving to a coffee shop and actually walking inside instead of going into the drive-thru and sitting outside and sipping your coffee. What always helps with slowing down is getting off your phone, getting off of social media for a couple hours. That really helps too. But I think even just being willing to slow down can really help. And sometimes other things that help with this, for me at least, are putting in those necessary provisions, those like putting up blocks or obstacles that up towards the things that get you spinning back out. So like for me, when I finish up today, I cannot check my email when I'm about to wrap up, because if I start to check my email, I'm going to end up sitting here for another hour, or I might get some sort of information that's going to keep me here instead of allowing myself to transition to something slower. So knowing how you are and knowing who you are and trying to get yourself into the slow channel, right? Like if you can just get yourself there, for me, that's half the battle. And then my final thought on this is just be willing to surrender. And this one is really hard for me because it means knowing that something could go wrong or that I could fail someone. It doesn't mean that I will. I definitely don't want that to happen, but being willing to surrender means I'm doing the best that I can. I have to let go a little bit. I can't be in control of every single thing that will or won't happen or that I do know or don't know. And I have just to be willing to be where I am and to let go of control a little bit. And that means allowing whatever needs to happen for the good, the bad, the indifferent. Maybe even it's important to stop judging that, like putting those words attached to it, and just being willing to let go. And I think that's, tying back to this quote at the beginning around the green lights and the trying to hit fewer red lights. The more that you are willing to surrender, like you put your intentions out there, you are committed, you're showing up, you're doing the work. If you combine that with the ability to let go and not force outcomes, things do always work out for the best. Even if you hit a red light, maybe that red light is for a reason, but it will lead you to your next green light or your next series of green lights. So, who else needed that deep breath? I hope that was somewhat helpful. I know it was for me, at least, to consider those things and to be really authentic and honest with myself about that progress. That is definitely, a lot of that is my intentions for this week ahead. And I will be happy to report back about how that is going. So let's do a card reading today. Pulling out this Super Attractor deck. I'm in love with this. I just love the artwork of this deck by Michaela Ezra. And this deck is by Gabriella Bernstein. So let's just see which card we pull today. The universe powerfully responds the instant I realign with love. I love that, and it reminds me of something that I heard last week, which is there is nothing that harshness can solve that loving kindness can't do better. And I love that it says the universe powerfully responds the instant I realign with love. And, maybe all of these things that I just, even recounted for combating living in defense, knowing who you are, knowing who you can trust, being willing to slow down, being willing to surrender, all of those things really do allow you to realign with love, right? And then the universe will powerfully respond to that and continue to take care of you. So having a lot more trust feels very divine, if you ask me. All right, you guys, that is it for today. If you have a chance, go to check out that lunar guide on the website or on the Patreon. If you are not a member of our Patreon page and you love guided meditation, yoga classes, and just need a force like me to constantly remind you to take care of yourself and that you are worthy, you are deserving of these moments that you carve out for your well-being, next month, we're actually going to begin to offer live classes. So you can check that out. We're going to go through a little bit of a tier switch of what's being offered where, but mostly we're just going to be adding great benefits to the community tier member level. So if you're interested, be sure to remember to check that out. That change will come into effect on June 1st, so 20 days until then. I am so grateful for you all in the community. If you have a moment and you haven't rated or reviewed my podcast where you listen to this or on Apple Podcast, please know I would so appreciate it. It all helps us get more exposure, and it would just mean the world to me. So until next time, thank you so much and take good care.